Great, I'd like to call the meeting to order of the Mass Transit Commission of the City of Monona, Wednesday, May 10th, 2023. Obviously,
Oh, I do have the role. I'm trying to do this by memory. Is Jasper. Yes. Mr. Paul. And Ms. Khan. What's Jillian's Slate?
Jillian Slate.
Oh, Slate. Okay.
Here.
Okay. Oh, and Alder Moore.
Yes, okay. And Alder Moore, right. And we have one appearance this evening from Wendy Way. So Wendy, since you've been here before, you know the drill, but it's your 3 minutes to share whatever you'd like to share, and we're just here to listen.
Thank you.
Okay.
I'm Wendy Way. I live near the corner of Winnequa Road and Nichols Road, which positions me to view the activities in the area of Winnequa Park and what goes on Winnequa Road and Nichols, of course. And I just wanted to call the committee's attention to the fact that the event season in Monona has begun. If you haven't noticed already, last Saturday, for example, the entire Saturday morning was taken up with several hundred people in Winnequa Park for the Monona Run Walk. And the Nichols Road was blocked off at Winnequa, and Winnequa Road was, half of it was blocked off, you know, like all the way down. And as I said, there were several hundred people there. These events go on, you know, from the spring all the way through the fall, well into the fall. They're very popular, and I just, because I'm there, I see what's going on. I just wonder what 40-foot buses running hourly is going to mean for these events. I mean, are the buses going to run? Are the events going to be canceled? What's going to happen? I took some photographs, and I'll just very quickly, I can pass around what this actually looks like. They have one side of the street blocked off with the runners coming this way, cars parked on the other side of the street, one vehicle trying to go down the street because they don't close the whole thing off. And this happens for a half a day, and it happens,
sure.
You know.
Yeah, well, I live on the other end of Winnequa, and so I was in my front, sure. Well, I think we all have friends that were runners, and I've served at the beverage stations along the way. So we certainly recognize there are a lot of big events.
It would break my heart to see these events go elsewhere or canceled, or to have the buses trying to run in the midst of that. So I just wasn't sure if everybody has had a chance to actually get down there for some of these events and see. And then there are other festivals too, of course, like the 4th of July festival and so on, which means so much to our community. I mean, that's part of the reason that I live here, and I know a lot of people do, is because we enjoy this. And the other thing is I worry that when the results of the survey are summarized, that we're going to lose some of the nuance. There are many people like myself that would support buses running in areas where they really make sense to run, but don't support buses running where they would interfere with events like this in our community and present a safety hazard just on a daily basis with people who are running, walking, biking, pushing kids, etc. So that's it. I'm a broken record.
No, you're always welcome, and I thank you for your feedback. Okay, so there isn't anybody else on the Zoom, so I'm going to close the appearance section. And we don't have any unfinished business, so we're going to be immediately to number 5, new business, the continuing data analysis of the Transit Commission survey. So since Addie was not able to make it this evening, I think we'll probably focus on what we've got for tonight, especially the comments, since I know some other folks were categorizing those comments.
Okay, this it's got all the comments categorized.
Okay.
I don't know if this is a document that's been updated lately. Let's see if there's a date.
Jillian and I and Addie did categorizing.
Okay,
You guys
and was
make-
that
make
in
this-
last month's packet or? Where was that document found? Because I thought I.
Well, I just searched for Addie. And I found this document. That True shared with me.
On your
and it
email,
was-
you search for Addie?
Well, Monona Transit themes from comments.
Okay,
So somebody was compiling the themes.
I know we did some work on that, but I wasn't sure we had a complete document.
I think all of the comments were categorized
On the
on that spreadsheet.
On the spreadsheet.
Yeah, but
He's looking at extracts.
oh, okay. Yeah, and I mean, to be honest, I stopped doing the extracts because I thought some of the extracts were kind of distracting from the general themes, which
Right.
like when we were going over the Excel, it was pretty clear that a lot of I'd say that a huge chunk of the comments were about safety.
mm-hmm,
A huge chunk were suggesting that the route not go on Winnequa and go, you know, a lot of them were suggesting alternative routes or only Monona Drive
right,
and Broadway. And then I'd say that most of the people who identify, then there's sort of like a subset of commuters or people who self-identified as people who use the Monona Transit, Monona Express, or would use the bus, who were concerned that the route would be changed to Monona Drive and Broadway, and thus they wouldn't be able to take it.
right,
So there's kind of one of the things that emerged is, and this is something I've gotten from talking to people who ride Monona Express, is concern that the people who do currently ride transit, well, I guess putting aside the lift, people who
Right.
do ride Monona Express are concerned that if the route is changed, it won't serve them.
right,
And then also that because the route will take longer, it will be inconvenient. So that I'd say that maybe, I don't know if you'd agree with this, Laura, but maybe 40% of comments had to do with safety, or maybe even 50%.
It was almost always mentioned, even if the thrust of the comment was something else.
Yeah.
right. So
Right.
I found that, I found the documents that you were referring to, and the reason why I didn't see it is because I was obviously not here at the first meeting. I was on vacation, and so I didn't scroll back far enough to the previous meeting when you guys had already completed this. So a couple of things I would say, I guess, to start. One is, it seemed, first of all, I mean, in the interest of sort of the overall big picture, I want the community to know that as we're focusing on, I mean, I know there's been some assumptions that we've made a decision around Madison Metro, right? Because we have tend to focus on Madison Metro, and I want the community to understand that we're focusing on Madison Metro because we already are very clear about how Monona Transit runs, what they're capable of doing, and for how much they could do it for, because we've been operating with them and capable of not doing, right? Because we've been operating with them for years, including having just gone out for an RFP, you know, within the last couple of years and recontracted with them. So it's not that we're ignoring Monona Transit or that we've made a decision, but Madison Metro would definitely be a switch. And so that's why our focus is, would that switch make the most sense and why? And so it seems to me that our charge is, as we're looking at the survey data, is to think about, you know, if there are, as an example, if there are concerns about the route that was originally proposed, right? are there ways in which we could adapt the route that would still serve people that need to be served, including the current commuters? But reduce some of the concerns that the people that are concerned about the bus have, including issues of safety. Right? So I think it's about, supporting those people, again, regardless of what service we have, it's about supporting those people that are interested in public transit and that take public transit, and obviously mitigating the concerns as best we can. And that may be questions going back to, Madison Metro. It might be adjusting the route, it might be adjusting the times, whatever it is, but based on the information that we have, recognizing that, as Laura pointed out previously, this wasn't a public referendum. It's not as simple as, half the people said they don't like it and the other half of the people said they do, and so therefore we should or shouldn't adopt it based on the public opinion of, because our charge is to use our expertise, including the data driven approach, to be able to look at the real picture of both and then make a determination. And there were too many unanswered questions around the Madison proposal before we did the survey.
Yeah, and there's one thing that Laura pointed out is, and I think it shows that regardless of what we decide, I think some concerns need to be answered by more information. Like, one thing that was very apparent from the survey is that Lyft riders got the impression that there'd be higher barriers to use paratransit, when I think, didn't they tell us that 0 people were rejected for
Correct.
paratransit? So
Right.
Clearly there's an issue of information for some of the concerns. And I think also there were a bunch of comments that said that, Monona Express is great. It just needs to be publicized more so people use it, so like, whether it's going with Madison Metro or sticking with the Express, it's clear that there's a need for information about what each of those services provide and who they serve.
That's right. I would absolutely concur. And in fact, I've already given the mayor heads up and Mark the heads up that they can expect a budget request regardless of what the decision is for 2024 around making sure that we do a better job of communicating with our public, regardless of which service it is or combination of services, because another thing is that I'm sure that there are a fair number of seniors that probably don't know, because I've heard from some seniors and saw the writing from some seniors around, that paratransit isn't necessarily going to take them to the grocery store, or Madison Metro won't take them to the grocery store. Well, there's at least two other services that take people to the grocery store. Like, there's 3 or 4 different bus services that serve the seniors. So not just the Lyft. Regardless, I think we need to be prepared to invest in a better job of educating our community. And that's going to take money, in the same way that the postcard that we did and mailed out to everybody took money. And, it's going to take a concerted marketing effort in much the same way that we did around the survey. So with that, do you want to start by looking at sort of what the buckets were, since Doug, you talked about the buckets and whether or not we think any of those buckets either lend to questions
Exactly.
that we might have for Madison Metro, or lend themselves to looking at mitigation strategies that might, and what those might be.
Right. I think there's like 3 categories.
Okay.
Right? There's one category of comment that is incorrect or misinformed.
Yep.
That isn't necessarily, like, as an informed body,
Right.
we can say, okay, well, that's not relevant because it's not correct.
Right.
That's just our job. It might be cold, but it's just our job to be like, that's false, sorry. Or, people using public space freely. If you have a problem with that, you know, we it's not our job to make you feel good that people are like out in public. There's
I don't know what
there's
you mean by that.
well, like, I don't want people walking around in front of my house waiting for a bus. It's
okay.
like, well,
Yeah.
it's at a public bus
Right,
stop.
I
That's,
hear you.
I'm sorry, but that's allowed. There's comments about things that we can change or make improvements about, like safety.
Right.
Or we can decide we accept like road wear and tear, like, okay, the bus might cause wear and tear in the road, but we'll increase our maintenance of those roads and those routes.
Right.
And then I think there's legitimate questions about ridership and how the route actually works, which are like, to me, the route being good is what will make ridership good.
Right.
So
Yeah.
if the routes pick people up where they want to go
That's right.
and take them to where they want to go,
Right.
and then they can get back,
Right.
then I think ridership will be good.
Right.
So that's how I would like review the comments, I guess, is like, what can we do about that? We've already talked about like our willingness to like improve sidewalks
Right.
where we propose the route.
Right.
What we haven't done and what none of us have access to, except really Mark, is contact with Metro about the route and understanding what our leverage or leeway to affect it is. They've said, here's your route.
No, not on C3. On Monona Drive and Broadway, yes, but on C3, there were some turns that I know they said when they tried to turn, they weren't workable.
Sure.
They took some rides
But
and
they
then
did-
Mark and Addie and I rode with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think that they're quite open to
Oh,
changing
they are.
the route within, the west side of Monona Drive.
Yeah.
I think they're open to that as long as they have the right turning radius.
Yeah.
And
They could tell us, and it was really helpful if Addie would make a suggestion and they could say, well, if we do that and then this, that wouldn't fit in a 60-minute route, I mean.
right,
So they're listening
Mhm.
and they have all kinds of expertise about turning around and how long things are gonna take, and is there a good place for a stop?
Yeah.
right. Are we
Totally flexible.
Yeah.
So are we in concurrence that the Monona Drive and Broadway only option, which I know there were a lot of community members, and I don't know, again, the percentages, because you guys did the tallying of the comments, but but certainly between the public information meetings and the feedback on the survey, are we in concurrence that the Monona Drive and Broadway option doesn't work because people would have to walk?
Right, that's
Too
not
far.
mass transit if we.
Right, it's not
Limited.
mass transit and people would have to walk too far. I mean, like I've heard, numerous people say, and again, there's nothing wrong with this opinion, but I've heard numerous people say, well, everybody can walk a mile. But national research says that people won't. So it doesn't serve its purpose, right? Because first of all, not everybody can. To your point, Jillian, a minute ago, that would actually lessen the service available rather than increase the service available, because there are riders now that are use the stops that we do have within Monona. And 3, I mean, it's like anything else, right? If there's too much overhead, if it takes too much time to get where you need to go, or it takes too much time to walk or it's too cumbersome to walk or whatever, you're just not going to do it. And so it defeats the purpose. So
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah.
And there are plenty of commuters, I guess what I learned from, paying close attention to the comments, there are plenty of people who would like to be commuters who aren't.
Right.
So just the commuter service,
Right.
certainly the times, weekdays, weekends and all that kind of thing, but it's not, there's a lot of people who would like to use it. Who used to use it, maybe even,
Right,
and don't anymore. And so, and then I think we also heard from a lot of, well, I know, we also heard from a lot of people who would like to, you know, who wrote about wanting to use buses. So it's not just the current ridership
Right.
at all,
right.
at all.
I think there was also, I mean, there was a small but not insignificant subset of comments that were from parents of teenagers or students at UW or MATC who
Yes.
thought like, hey, if my child could take the bus to high school or downtown, I don't have to drive them there.
Right,
Um,
yeah.
and they're
and
not.
so like, and I don't think they imagine that their teenager is gonna schlep to Monona Drive a mile, you know,
Right.
whereas if
Well,
there's a
if they
stop.
could, they would probably be able to walk all the way to high school.
That's
Yeah.
right.
I guess that's one of my issues with the route. Is I could take it to high school, but I couldn't take it home from high school. Because I would have to get on and go all the way downtown, and it would be an entire hour before it brought me back to Monona. And that's one of the concerns I have
So what
about
is
it.
your
Well,
suggestion?
It's a
no.
one-way route that comes once an hour.
It's a one-way route, but on the return route, it goes the opposite way. It's
No.
unlike, I
Doesn't.
thought it doesn't?
It goes the same way every time. But I would propose an option that would be, I don't know, that goes back the other way, because that's what that's my.
thought, my understanding was that unlike the Monona Express, it would go back the reverse.
That's how the Monona Express operates.
No, the Monona Express,
It goes
I
one way in
thought-
the morning and the opposite way in the evening.
well, so the Monona Express, it goes, I'm the last stop in the morning. And I guess I'm the last stop in the morning and the first stop up in the afternoon. My understanding was that with the Madison Metro, it would go through the whole loop around Monona and I would be the last stop in the afternoon.
It would be. It would be, but you'd luckily be coming from downtown
But
where you can pick up the C route. But if you were at Monona High School, you would only be able to pick up the C route going northbound.
Okay, I see what you mean. Yeah.
So the only way to catch it would be to walk
To Stoughton Road.
north to Buckeye and Cottage Grove Road or whatever, where
Right, okay.
you'd have to walk practically another half a mile in the opposite direction to pick it up. And then ride it on Stoughton Road where it's not allowed to stop.
Right.
I just
Yeah,
think, like, I love this route. I just don't know that logistically it's checking all the boxes for transit within people moving around here. Like if you're going downtown and back, it's fine.
right,
But if you're trying to like use it locally, it's
I think
It's not as good.
let's make lists, and those are the
Yeah.
things we would bring to Madison Metro.
yeah. And I wonder if they could propose a solution to that, because
Oh,
I
you'd
mean-
be surprised. I was so impressed.
yeah. I
right,
mean,
so,
that was another thing people mentioned in the comments. There are a bunch of people who said one of the ironies of the process, or not I don't know if it's an irony, but that some people couldn't make it to the library. You know, there are people who live in Monona who may not have access to a car or
Mhm.
some way of going places at night, and so they couldn't go to the library for the hearings. And they just want, you know, like there's no way to participate in civic events in Monona if you don't have a car or some way to get to the city center, because it's just so inaccessible. And it's tricky because it's like neither the status quo nor Madison Metro really sufficiently addresses that problem.
That would
And-
be, I would see that as a real priority.
Yeah, if you live
Getting to
here,
City
I'm
Hall,
sorry,
getting
I'm pointing
to
at
the
my computer and I
library.
apologize. If you live here and you want to get to the library, you'd have to go for an hour-long bus ride downtown, through town and back to get back to that. I mean, obviously, if you live here, you're just gonna walk, but you get what I'm saying, like,
I do get what you're saying.
it's it might look good on this big transit map, but like, look, if we focus in on how it serves our local.
Yeah.
Because the H and the L go two ways.
Right,
Those routes run in each direction.
right,
That's the deficiency for C3, in my opinion.
right. So it seems to me that that's one, the whole idea of going both ways, that's one question we would have for.
I don't know that that helps some of the other concerns our citizens have, because that would be 2 times the vehicles. To have one going in each direction.
I think it's fair to work with Madison Metro and say, you know, in
How does
order
this
to
work?
consider this, we would have to have
Right.
X, Y, and Z.
I don't know, maybe it can go one way and then the other, I don't know.
Right, so it seems to me that's one proposed change for the route that we might consider. The other proposed change that we might consider, and again, it would be helpful if we had Addie's heat map, because I knew she was working with heat map.
Sure.
Based on the responses. And that heat map for a couple of reasons. One is the overall route, and also where the stops were proposed within the western side of Monona. You know, we talked about from a safety standpoint, would it be better and still feasible if it went down Owen as far as St. Stephen's? So you would be able to collect, if you will, pick up a chunk of a big chunk of the seniors that are either Heritage or Monona Hills or the other multifamily housing units that are closest to Monona Drive by going down Owen as far as St. Stephen's. Then if you turned at St. Stephen's, it seems to me too that St. Stephen's is both where the food pantry is and also where voting is. So the bus could conceivably be taking people that need to get to St. Stephen's or to church at St. Stephen's, but then you cut across on Pheasant Hill and then take a left on Nichols and you go down Nichols and then cut across on Winnequa to Dean and then come up Dean. So you'd always be going by the city center. You wouldn't be driving and
I think there's housing, you're serving more housing if you would come that far east as well.
Right.
On Nichols.
Right, and both Nichols and Dean already have sidewalks on both sides, so from a security standpoint, it seems like that might be preferable to, if it, from a safety standpoint, to going down Owen or going down, or Maywood. Sorry, I don't have the map in front of me.
Yeah.
Should have brought my full folder.
Maywood, I guess was it Maywood that it went down or Healy? It was Maywood.
It was Maywood. It started out as Healy and then it backed it off to Maywood. So we were, and the mayor's already talked about the fact that to do a sidewalk on Winnequa between Nichols and Dean would not be that expensive. If that, if changing the route that way made sense. But without the heat map, and checking some of the distances because we'd have to see if that still meets the 3/4 of a mile radius piece that's required, right?
I'm certain that there would be areas that would not be covered, but I don't think I don't think we always had full coverage.
Right. So if you had to, from the comments, those of you that worked on the comments, if you had to rank order, let's say the top 10 comments, both on the pro side and con, or not even pro side or con side, but the concerns. And so, you know, what would those be besides the route?
We categorize for route and a lot of them.
Right.
Or route. And so if
Like a
you
lot of-
take those away and you have a more balcony view of the project and what we might gain or lose, I think that it works for me to kind of separate out commuters. People who are really, it's a commuter service, and the people who currently use it to commute and have some challenges with it, and the people who commute, and maybe we can add high school to school and or to work.
Right.
You know, those are regular, repeated people who are in, and so we had quite a few comments from commuters and would-be commuters as well. And then, you know, if we look at just in terms of the audience or the population, then there are people who, you know, want to go downtown to shop, to Madison to shop, or to go to a play, or to, I really appreciated the comment from one guy, because there were so many about, you know, seniors, and he said, you know what, I have cataracts, you don't want me driving, and right now I am. Right. You know, so there were, you know, I do think if we could work with Madison Metro and just say, you know, it would have to be X, Y, and Z. I just think that so much energy is going into the route and not the maybe the why, who we're trying to serve or what we're trying to achieve, or the, you know, and there are some like pretty extreme.
There's the rub, because it's like, ideally, it's everything,
Right.
all kinds of travel,
Right.
you know, recreation and commuting.
Exactly.
Right, so that's why I was
Suppose.
asking you to, because I still, sorry, I have the survey, I have the report, but I don't have the comments, so that's why I was asking those of
Okay.
you that were responsible.
And
Comments,
think-
rather than the anecdotal, was there a,
Here's
here's
how
the number one
I chopped
concern,
them up.
here's the number two
I chopped
concern, here's the
them
number
up
three.
ultimately
Okay.
into one category that kind of encompasses frequency of how often is it going to stop? How far am I from the stop? How long is the ride going to be? Or I want a transfer station.
Right,
You know, so some of the nitty-gritty about how buses work and some feelings about that and some advice.
So it was more questions than I need it to be X or.
It would be great, here's one in that category, it would be great if it was easy to ride the bus in the evenings to go out to dinner.
right,
You
right,
know,
okay,
then there were a lot of comments from commuters and would-be commuters. Too many about need publicity. Work with Uber and Lyft. You know, there were a lot of good, you know, a lot of
Right.
suggestions.
right,
The future is right on demand. What about a local, a couple people talked about a trolley, a local trolley. I went to Damiano and.
right,
You
but
know.
we're not talking about trolleys, we're just
Right,
trying to get
right,
proposals, so
exactly.
that's why I'm trying to get
Yeah.
to what were the biggest concerns.
I would say my impression on the con side, like from the computers, the concern was there's definitely a lot of, this is gonna take a long time. There was concerns about transfers, even though I don't think transferring is actually necessary, so that's an
Right.
information issue.
Yep.
And there's concern about whether the route will adequately serve the residential areas of Monona.
Yep.
On the
Yep.
con side, the largest area of concern, I thought, and maybe Laura, you can confirm, is safety. A lot of people talked about being concerned about the buses going on streets where children were walking to school or where there weren't sidewalks.
Right,
So it's definitely connected to the sidewalk issue. There was, I'd say the second largest area of concern beyond safety. There were a lot of people who kind of expressed a general, it's what Addie categorized as small town, quiet streets. Like, I didn't move to Monona to have a bus go past my house.
Right.
That's something which I don't necessarily think we can address. Whereas the safety issue, it's like, we can probably get figures from Madison Metro to try to ascertain whether having the bus, a Madison Metro bus on Monona streets is actually going to make things, less safe for kids. But the second area, it just seems like it's pretty nebulous.
Yeah.
And then I'd say the concern about noise, pollution, road wear and tear, there are fewer of those comments, but a few productive comments of like, oh, well, if we go with Madison Metro, we should have them, commit to getting an electric bus for the C route by like 2020, whatever.
Right.
So that was my impression of the biggest areas concerned. Safety was really overwhelming. Then the general, like, I don't want to have a bus because that's not my vision of Monona. And then the noise, pollution, road.
Okay. So it sounds like if we could, based on what we're looking at, and again, we don't have the heat map and that would be helpful, but it sounds like if we could work with Metro on potentially doing a loop that wouldn't require, if somebody got on, to your point, Doug, if somebody got on, at the high school, that they'd have to go all the way around, before they could get downtown, because of the one-way nature. So if we could work with Madison Metro on the two-way, it'd still be a one-way bus, right? It would still be a one-way bus, but the whole idea is like now, if it was one way going downtown, when it came back, instead of going one way, it would be Owen, you'd start at Owen and then going the other way, you enter D. So it would be very similar to what you have now, where you're the first one on the bus in the morning and you're the last one off.
Though I feel bad, that would serve me, but not the people who live on the.
Well, and I wouldn't, this is just my opinion, but I wouldn't try to come up with the answer so much as I would say, here's what our problem with.
No, I'm not suggesting we come up with the answer. I'm just trying to get clarity from the group about.
Right.
We'd express our concerns to Metro and help work with them to try to solve that issue.
Yeah.
That there's concern. And then the second thing would be around safety.
Yeah.
And whether or not that would work for the majority of people that are interested in taking Metro, if we change the routes. And if so, if it's not the Owen to Pheasant Hill to Nichols to across on Winnequen up Dean, what are the other options once we see the heat map that might serve that purpose?
Sure.
And then the third thing would be if we do end up changing the route, or even with the current route, are the bus stops themselves, again, based on the interest in the heat map, are they in the right place? Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I think that's fine tuning, like that piece of it is, if we get the route good,
right,
then that to me is fine tuning.
And then the fourth thing, it seems to me, would be just around the whole issue of, I moved to Monona for a certain reason, and I'm worried about the noise, or I'm worried about the diesel or whatever, might be to talk to Madison Metro about. I'm pretty certain they have.
I've already seen them with a 40-foot electric bus.
They told us that they're really pricey and they have a plan they have some.
The rollout
and
plan.
they're getting more.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. It's a supply issue. They're having a hard time getting as many as they need because a lot of cities are going this route. So, I mean, they've, you know, budgeted for a lot, but they just can't get them in fast enough. So could we, you know, I'm pretty sure that Madison Metro has some compressed natural gas buses as opposed to diesel. And I think they're a little quieter, but I can't answer that for sure. It might be a question to ask them. And then because they are getting more electric buses in, even if they couldn't do it by 24, could they conceivably commit to having a 40-footer? Maybe they could by 24 if they really want our business. But assuming that they can't, since that's already been asked and answered, maybe.
I mean, I think it's in their best interest to go electric with their fleet.
Right, and they know.
Yeah.
I think it's inevitable. It's just a matter of time and
Right.
them not making promises that they
Right.
can't deliver on.
Exactly. Exactly. Oh, but at the same time, you know, if they could say, you know, we can't guarantee it for 24, but we could put Manila at the top of the list for 25 or something like that, you know, I think that would. That maybe help. So with those, are those things, is there anything else?
I think people have requested safety data, and if the I don't know that it's easy to find on their website, but if they have their, you know, record of safety.
It's already on the FAQs.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's on the FAQs and it's impeccable.
Okay,
Right.
Like they haven't, there hasn't, the only, I think, it's impeccable. It's on the FAQs.
Yeah. One time
Way
in
better
4
than I
years,
thought.
somebody, you know, stepped in front of the bus or, yeah.
Yeah, it's not it's really fantastic. It's way better than any of us thought would be possible. I think there were a total of 9 incidents in 3 years and 7, I mean, I have to pull up the FAQs, but I
Right,
think it was like 7 out of
next
the
to
9
nothing.
were people that fell when they were on the bus, like they
Yeah.
were walking to a seat or something. It had nothing to do with the pedestrians outside or so.
And how many accidents are there with cars? And if there are fewer cars, then there are that many pedestrians.
Yeah, I know about that, but we do have that safety data, is my point. And I think it's
Yes,
part of that
yeah.
education component that we
Yeah.
offer. So what are there any other things from the data that you saw that would be from the comments or
Actionable.
whether it was ethical that are actionable,
There were,
technical actionable items?
I don't know that it's actionable, but I think there definitely was a thread about sustainability, environmentalism,
Yep.
the future.
Yep.
You know, and that came up.
Right. People wanted to see more of that.
Yes.
Right. And people being concerned that the diesel buses aren't. But
That was usually in a string, wasn't it, Jillian? It'd be the diesel and the roadwear and the this thing and the that. I mean, it
Right.
was like a.
sure.
Combo
Yeah.
pack.
Yeah.
And there is data. Actually that compares, because I did it when before I did the survey, I did the research on, there is data that says basically how many people have to be on the bus to for it to be greener than those same people driving their cars, them in their gas cars, a diesel bus versus gas cars. And I'm pretty confident that the number was like 9. There needs to be 9 people on the bus. For the bus to be more beneficial for the environment than those say 9 people driving their cars.
Yeah, so that's where the route is important, because if the route's no good, then it doesn't make it environmentally positive or beneficial.
Right.
There were not a lot, but it was of interest to me. I'm not sure how much we heard from developers or employers, but we did hear from at least a couple of employers, so that would be great.
Right.
You know, and so I can imagine someone's thinking, saying, acting, I would bring my business to Monona if I knew I could get employees there.
Right.
Or I'd employ kids from Monona, you know.
Right. Right, and we certainly know with the increase in density on Monona Drive, and in Monona generally, that we're gonna, and not to mention the master planning for San Damiano, that people are looking for bus stops around all of that, right? So private developers as well as the city. So out of your comments, Doug, are there any other questions that you can think of?
No.
Okay.
No.
So I'm going to suggest again, since we don't have that heat map, unless there's anything else that we feel like we need to continue to peel the onion on, as I like to say, that's probably as far as we can go tonight.
Sure.
Yeah.
How do we get in? How do we have conversations with the Metro people about these things? Like, or who does that?
Well, Mark is on vacation right now, which is why Leah is very patiently joined us for the meeting tonight. Which again, I really appreciate, and Mark is due back next week. Yeah. And so we can essentially encapsulate the questions, or we could invite Madison Metro to the next meeting. Okay. Or Mark could conceivably send the questions to Madison Metro. Or we could schedule a Zoom meeting with Madison Metro.
What about
be a dialogue, I guess?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a dialogue.
I'm not disappointed with how Mark has handled it, but I always feel like he tells us what they tell him.
Right.
And it's like pretty concise, and it's like,
right.
I sure would like to ask them like a 50 question,
right.
You know, like, or
yeah,
propose some stuff, you know, like what about this, what about that? So
right, exactly. So that's why I'm thinking it might make sense to have them at the next meeting so that we can actually have a dialogue with them. Because it's hard.
Is it possible to send them the questions, send them the line, like the questions you summarized in advance of a meeting? Okay.
That's exactly what I was thinking about, Jillian, is we could send them the questions in advance and then have them at the next meeting, or conceivably go down to meet them at their, if they don't want to, if for some reason they can't come up, but one way or another, I think a dialogue would be helpful. I agree. But in the meantime, if you think of anything else out of the comments or out of the data, the hard data in the survey that you feel like is worth probing further with them, by all means, let me know and I can add it to the list. Make sense? God bless, Jillian. I hope that wasn't your child passing on whatever germs at the daycare.
Oh no, it is. It is. I've got everything. It's better for you all than I'm on Zoom.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? Anything that you want to pass on to Addie? I'll ask Addie to watch this. But if there's anything you want to pass on to Addie in terms of her crunching the data, by all means, let me know too, right?
There's we haven't talked about the senior thing, and I think that's probably because we all understand what's happening, but it's sure there.
Yeah. So it's interesting because I remember last year, one of the things that came up out of the senior center was last year and the year before, when Molly was on the council, there was interest from the seniors of having more transit for the purpose of getting down to this library and to the city center for like the senior concerts, as an example. You know, because there isn't any weekend service, so they wouldn't be able to go to events down at the city center, and they wouldn't be able to go to the library at certain times, and so, you know,
I think if we get this route to work right, they'll have better service.
Right. Exactly. Because the paratransit, again, I mean, is small buses, it's not big buses, it's small buses, the paratransit. It's bad. In fact, I know we have a driver from Badger Bus here, at least one in Monona, because there's always a bus parked off of Dean. I'm pretty sure it's on Wallace. It's either Wallace or Gordon, south of Dean. I go by it every morning when I'm driving out Dean. It's parked in the same way that the Monona Express bus is parked, I think, in front of the driver's house at night, or during the day when she's not driving. There's a Badger bus that is exactly the same scenario that's in Monona, at least one that's in Monona, that's right off of Dean. So anyway.
And I think the standard bus will also be pretty accommodating.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, if you can get to the stop, which some people will be pretty close to, so.
Right.
Well, the new Madison Metro routes start June 1st, right? I think June 1st.
Correct.
Right, so actually they're probably really busy right now.
Right,
With some of that stuff.
because they're getting, those would be the routes that are not the C3, but or they might be running the C3, just not coming through.
They're not, their new map isn't showing it anymore.
But I'm pretty sure they just took it off, so they're the one that goes on Broadway and the one that goes on.
All Madison high school students have a free pass for the summer.
Right.
Free bus pass for the summer.
Right.
I don't know, that was great.
Right.
You know.
Right. So yeah, I'm sure they're, again, if you think of anything else, let me know.
I'm sending you just a graphic diagram I made that shows the 3/4 mile radius around the route, so you can see how far it goes. It's pretty well covering everything. So
with the revised route or with the current route?
The revised route or the current route, there's actually not a ton of difference between those two in terms of distance.
Right.
So, I mean, aside from, you know, from parts of, well, that's just the C route, because I think the other routes, the G route covers, I mean, between the G, L, and if we do a C3, we would have the entire city covered by the 3/4 mile radius.
Okay.
Without any gaps.
Okay.
And plenty of the city of Madison as well, so.
Okay.
You'll be able to see it.
Okay. Thank you. All right.
Good.
Unless there's anything else, I'm happy to entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
We have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Again, thank you, you guys. I know this has been a heavy lift. I really appreciate you all diving in and helping sort through the data. This might be the second most successful survey in the city's history. You understand that?
What was the first?
What was it? Yeah.
I think San Damiano had the first survey, had the largest number.
But yeah.
Well, Nancy was saying,
It's so well communicated.
she was here, she's the natural step. What's her name?
Heather Gates. I was just.
She said her survey got maybe like 15 or 20% or something like that, but
Okay.
they were like banging on doors and.
Okay.
Well, I don't want to leave out anybody's success.
No, I just want to say that I really appreciate everybody's effort around marketing and getting the word out. And I'm glad that we had the response that we did, because it definitely gives us, I think, a lot more to work on than we had. So